First article we have is we're talking about the Atheist Conference, American Atheist Conference in 2019. Their national convention will be held in Cincinnati.
Yeah, it's going to be held in Cincinnati, and
April 19th through the 21st.
Actually, there's an article we're posting on our website, like right now.
Right now.
And people, after they finish with Fancy News, can go to it. And the headline that I've entitled this, and I wrote this article, and it says, Anti-Christian Convention in Cincinnati. Because the atheists having their annual convention in Cincinnati, downtown at the Hilton Hotel, actually, in downtown Cincinnati.
All right.
And we thought we would discuss this a little bit. It's interesting, it's held on Easter weekend, so it's from Thursday the 18th of April through to Sunday the 21st. And I'm going to tell you about a conference we decided to run at the same time, basically.
Now,
we're doing an Easter conference. What's that?
That wasn't on purpose, was it?
On purpose. It was designed. Yeah, so...
Intelligently?
Intelligently designed. Exactly.
Designed. Yes.
We're doing it from Wednesday through to Sunday, and we got some really special guests. I'll tell you about them in a minute, but including Ray Comfort. Who's heard of Ray Comfort? A number of you in the studio audience. So you need to come back for our Easter conference. It's going to be absolutely incredible. But anyway, so we thought we'd tell you a little bit about the Anti-Christian Convention in Cincinnati. Why do we say anti-Christian?
Well, because if you watch these atheists in particular, watch them interact with you on your Facebook or on your Twitter, they're not just attacking religion, they tend to attack Christianity directly. That tends to be their focus.
And to attack people.
And to attack people.
Yeah, they get very nasty with me.
Have you looked at your Twitter lately?
You know what? I tend not to read most of it because there's blasphemy and
it gets pretty ugly. It really
expletives and sexual perversion. Of course, for them, it wouldn't be sexual perversion because what do they... How do they determine morals?
Well, that's what we're getting to in the article, right? As you talk about that. So one of the first things it says about this event, this atheist conference, is that it will be, and you note this on your article, a family-friendly event.
Yeah, here's the interesting thing. When you read this about the American Atheists and their convention, this convention welcomes families with children and expects all participants to treat these families with courtesy and respect. And parents or guardians bringing children are responsible for their children's behavior. Then I want you to look at this next sentence. Parents or guardians should be aware not all sessions may be suitable for children. So it's a family-friendly event.
Which I was kind of wondering how many of the sessions would be family-friendly at all?
At all.
At all. I mean, I wonder how many in total. Probably not that many, if any.
I wouldn't think so. And when you read what they write and the way they attack Christianity,
well, and it also makes you wonder, I mean, what would you define as family-friendly from an atheistic perspective? And we do articles all the time. You mentioned one a couple weeks ago. According to our culture, it is family-friendly to have a drag queen come speak to basically kindergarten kids in a public library here in America.
Yeah, they would call that family-friendly.
That's family-friendly. So is that the same sort of thing
Here's
here?
what else is family-friendly. They say it's an LGBTQ-friendly event. And I'll just read this to you. To ensure that all members of the atheist community are welcome at our conventions, American Atheists is consciously working to create a safe space for members of the LGBTQ community. One way of acknowledging transgender people's needs and experiences is to designate a number of restrooms gender inclusive, which we will do with educational signs. And so it goes on. And so
again, it makes you wonder how family-friendly it will be.
How family-friendly is. Well, again, when Christians talk about family-friendly, we have an absolute basis to work from. It's a basis of the foundation of the authority of God's Word. And we can say that the Ark Encounter, the Creation Museum are family-friendly. But from an atheist perspective, they say there's no God. Well, just like Judges 21:25, when there's no king to tell them what to do, they all do what is right in their own eyes. And so how do they determine what's right, what's wrong, what's moral, what's not? It's all just their subjective opinion
because
when you
if
think
there is
about
no
it.
absolute standard, then it's all dependent on the person, right? And their own particular opinion. Yeah.
Right. And then the other interesting thing in here I thought was interesting is that when you look at some of the statements that they make, for instance, the American Atheists, it's a 501c3 organization, so it's tax deductible. You give donations to the American Atheists, you get a tax deduction, which means they're getting a benefit from the government. It means the government's not getting money they normally would. Somebody gets a benefit for that. And it's interesting that Answers in Genesis, the Creation Museum, the Ark, we're also tax deductible when people give donations. Right. And we also, at the Ark, receive a tourism tax incentive that we generate. We generate the money for that, actually, from sales tax at the Ark. And any tourist facility that fulfills the requirements gets that. But because of that, the atheists have claimed, in fact, the local atheists protest every year, that we shouldn't be allowed to hire people that we say have to agree with our mission, that we shouldn't be allowed to do that. Well, it's interesting for these particular people here, when you look at their code of conduct and you look at their exhibitor sign-up, notice what it says here. In previous years, American Atheists has welcomed more than 30 exhibitors to the convention. Many of these exhibitors were non-profit organizations within the secular and atheist movement, but previous conventions have welcomed organizations whose values align with our own. In other words, exhibitors have to align with the atheist values, whatever values they are.
So they're only bringing in people who align
with their values, align with their worldview.
Which we say they have the right to do.
Yes,
right? They do.
I mean, they're atheists. I would expect them to only allow people that agree with them
that does make sense.
To be exhibitors.
That's one of the few things that does make sense within the atheistic worldview.
Yeah, but when Answers in Genesis has a Christian organization and we say we're employing people that agree with our mission, which we're within our rights to do and by law we can do, they say you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't be allowed to do that. Because you receive a benefit from the government. Well, they're receiving a benefit from the government, tax-deductible donations. And it's interesting, do you think the American Atheists would employ me to be their president?
I would like to...
What's your guess? What's your guess?
I don't think they would, but I'd like to see it happen. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Maybe a few fireworks go off if that did happen.
Well, then we could redirect them in the right direction. Yeah, if we could do
Somebody
that.
might get saved, right?
But
but yeah, it's not going to happen.
I'm sure the American Atheists only employ an atheist as their head, which makes sense, right? Why should they be allowed to do that? They're receiving a benefit from the government. They're so hypocritical in the way that they say things and their accusations against people like us. I mean, they really are. Very hypocritical.
Well, not only that, but you mentioned in the article, and somebody mentioned it online as well in the comments, they tend to, if you disagree with what they say, then typically it's not a logical response to what you're saying, it's an emotional response. It's an attack on your character. But if you don't agree with us, then you're homophobic. If you don't agree with my particular views on abortion, you're misogynist. If you don't agree with us on this, then you must be some hate-filled person because you don't agree with our view. And it's not typically a logical reason for, hey, why do your views different from mine? Let's sit down and have a conversation. It's an attack.
Right.
And the emotional nature of the attack shows the lack of a foundation or logical reasoning for their view. It's arbitrary based on their opinion.
All people have to do is go to some of the atheist websites, some of their blogs, Facebook posts, go to my Twitter.
Oh my goodness.
That's really a cesspool. I mean, that's what it is.
I mean, and literally, I'm not just saying this to be dramatic, but if you're going to check out those things later on, watch your kids. Don't let your kids check his Twitter feed without you looking at it first, because some of the things that are said, and we try to monitor that, but it's really hard.
It's interesting how they say for this conference, the American Atheists say this. They say American Atheists recognize that criticism of religion is common at its convention and welcome such discussion. Well, criticism of religion, by and large, is criticism of Christianity, but it's not criticism. By and large, it's attack of Christianity, and they will mock, they will scoff, they use blasphemy, they use expletives, sexual perversion. Go to the websites, go to the Facebook posts of the atheists, and you'll see that. And they do that on my Twitter all the time.
And that's not surprising. They're non-believers, so we expect that in their worldview.
Exactly.
Right.
And they say the harassment of individuals for his or her religious beliefs will not be tolerated. Wait a minute. Harassment of individuals for his or her religious beliefs will not be tolerated, but the atheists get on my Twitter and Facebook, and they make some of the most horrible attacks against Christianity, against God, against us, against me personally. And as you said, Brian, it's true. If we as Christians say no, marriage is not to be between a man and a man, a woman and a woman, because we're Christians, and based on the Bible in Genesis, marriage is to be a man and a woman. That's what true marriage is. And gender is male and female because God made male and female. If we say that, they immediately accuse us of being homophobic. They accuse us of being transphobic. They accuse us of being misogynist. As you said, when we speak against abortion and say abortion is killing a human being, which it is, it's murder, then they say that's misogynist, you hate women. And you know, there's a couple of words that we need to use more. Christianophobic and Christophobic. You can look them up. Yeah. Christianophobic and Christophobic. And that's really a hatred of Christianity and a hatred of Christians. That's what the atheists do. That's what this conference is going to be. It's going to be Christophobic and Christianophobic, because that's what the atheists do.
And it's interesting, you know, you read in the article that they're okay with attacking religion, but I wonder if they'll attack the religion of humanism or the religion of atheism, which is their own religion.
This is their own religion.
Because their own perspective, their worldview is religious by definition. They have a faith.
The atheists go nuts on my Twitter when I say that atheism is a religion. They say they have a non-belief. Wait a minute, non-belief?
A non-belief in...
Yeah, a non-belief. There's no God. Well, how do we all get here? By natural processes. That's a belief.
Well, really quickly, I wanted to go through a couple of things on the advertisement for the Atheist Convention to show you how religious it is by definition. So if you look at their advertisement, they're telling atheists to come and gather for speakers, activists, and community leaders to gather and talk about the news stories. There'll be social events, there'll be fellowship, they'll gather together. They'll show you the new rising stars in atheism to communicate their worldview more effectively. And they tell you to come together for their social events, their workshops, and their activist training. You will come and learn how to put your faith into practice. Right. The last thing they say is join us for a weekend of activism and community. And you could read that evangelism and fellowship. Their activism is they want to convince you their worldview is the right one based on their own faith, based on their own thinking. Actually, not based on absolute standard, but it's faith-based by definition.
And it's a blind faith. It's interesting. The local atheist group have protested the opening of the Ark on the anniversary of the opening. They were at the opening, and then they protested it a couple of times. And they say that we, as a Christian organization, who are tax deductible just like they are, shouldn't have the right to build an Ark or Creation Museum, or shouldn't have the right to have the same benefits they have or they can get.
And they have religious inclinations as well. And by the way, everybody's got a faith because no human knows everything. Therefore, there are certain things you have to believe by faith. And by the way, scientifically, you cannot prove there is no God.
Right.
To prove there is no God, you'd have to know everything, be everywhere, and be all-powerful to do those two things. In order to prove there is no God, you would have to be God. God would therefore exist as a self-refuting argument.
Now, I know we spent a bit of time on this, but we deliberately wanted to do that. But let me say, there's good news. You know what the good news is?
There is good news.
Answers in Genesis is running a conference.
That's right.
And we're calling it Answering Atheists. And we're going to put a link there in the comments, direct to that, so you can go to that. And we have some really special guests coming out for the Easter weekend, from the Wednesday, the 18th, through to Sunday morning.
And isn't Ray doing a special service?
Ray Comfort from Living Waters. The atheists call him the Banana Man. And that's because they totally misinterpret what he did on a video once about comparing a banana to a Coke can. And anyway, they call him the Banana Man. So he's used that to witness to atheists. But Ray Comfort, his son-in-law, EZ, another one of their great speakers, Mark Spence, is coming out. And as well as that, some of our own speakers, I'll be there as well. And Dr. George Purdom, Dr. Christopher Cohn, President of Calvary University, Dr. Jason Lyle.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
So, and he'll be coming out as well.
Dr. Tommy Mitchell will be around.
Dr. Tommy Mitchell. And so we're doing this conference from the Wednesday, the 18th, all the way through to Sunday morning. On Sunday morning, we're going to have an Easter sunrise service at the Ark. It'll be our first ever Easter sunrise service. It'll be in the Answer Center, and it'll be free and open to the public for them to come in. And people want to come to the conference, go to the link and you'll find out how to do that there. But we've been introducing what we call a 7-day unlimited ticket, including parking and so on, for the Ark and the Creation Museum. And instead of charging for a conference, people come and get the 7-day unlimited ticket. There's a couple one, there's a family one that is very generous, and then there's a single one, and then they can just come, and during those days of the conference, and for 7 consecutive days, they can come to the Ark, the Creation Museum, they can go to the conference sessions. It's an incredible deal, a phenomenal deal.
Some people don't recognize those 7 days are typically really really needed. You can spend a good 2 or 3 days here at the Creation Museum, another 2 or 3 days at the Ark Encounter, taking in all the sites, listening to the speakers, going to the planetarium, going to the different zoos, the botanical gardens. There's so much to do.
And then if they do it April next year, be in the conference center will be officially opened during that week, actually. The
weather
new
should be
answers,
nice.
weather should be nice.
Right? Yeah.
And then
Kentucky, could be
Friday evening, there's a Good Friday service that's going to be taken by EZ, Ray Comfort's son-in-law. And then the Sunday morning Easter sunrise service. So anyway, we spent a little bit of time on that. Let's get on to some of the other articles here, but the links will be in the comments there to go to find out about that conference.
All right, so from LifeSite News, we have here an article about bioethics. Quebec doctors now abruptly euthanize sick patients as first resort, study finds. And so, as you might have heard, Canada a while back legalized euthanasia. And of course, it's kind of quickly descended into what might happen to what maybe should happen in a given scenario. You keep reading down the article, it says, according to this study, sick patients in Quebec are sometimes abruptly killed by doctors through the province's euthanasia program with little or no effort to mitigate or relieve the patient's suffering through non-lethal medical means.
See, one of the things that we've always said, it happens with the LGBTQ movement, it's happening with the euthanasia issue as well, also the abortion issue. Once a door is opened, then that door gets pushed way open. And like with the LGBT movement, like in Australia and other places, said, but as soon as you open the door to gay marriage and so on, they're gonna want to insist that only, you can't only have Christians who don't agree with LGBT as Christian teachers in private schools and so on. Right. And of course, the movement said, oh, no, we're not doing it. We just want freedom. But as soon as they then open the way and pass those laws, then now they're pushing all these other laws that are really trying to impose that on everybody. Well, the same's happening with euthanasia.
Well, because we know at a spiritual level, what they're actually trying to do is suppress the truth and unrighteousness.
Right.
So probably for them, for each next step, they think, if I can just get this legalized, my own conscience will be soothed and won't be burdened by this sin. If I can just get this, I've successfully suppressed that truth. I want to fight against that. But when they get that next step, it doesn't ease their conscience. Their sin is still there. They go to the next step and to the next step.
One of the people here was commenting and saying they've heard LGBT people saying it's not just they want freedom, they want to destroy the institution of marriage, real marriage, which is in the Bible. And
because ultimately it's a spiritual battle.
Right.
That's what it really is.
And that's the thing we have to understand. With euthanasia, once you unlock that door, then they're going to be promoting it and pushing it, and then people who will be deciding who is time to for this person to go. And there's even been comments about, well, the older you get, the more you're a burden on the health system, so it's better to offer them a way out now so that they're not such a burden. Once you do not have a foundation in the absolute authority of the Word of God, then who decides?
Well,
anything goes.
Yeah, and then from an evolutionary perspective, wouldn't at some point you have a duty to die? I mean, once you become old and decrepit and it costs more money to keep you up and going than it would be just to reallocate those resources towards someone else to better their life and better society.
Well, here's the interesting thing. Listen to this. Canada legalized euthanasia in 2016 with a reported 2,000 deaths by assisted suicide in the first year, more than were expected. The numbers since have soared by a 30% increase. And now they're also talking about harvesting organs from people while they're still alive. We're going to kill you anyway, so let's take your organs while you're still alive. And they're talking about doing that now.
And I think you got a picture of this, but they even have in their waiting rooms in hospitals in Canada, there are signs advertising euthanasia in the waiting room of the hospital. I think that's the next one.
MAID is a legal medical device in Canada whereby physicians or nurse practitioners help eligible patients fulfill their wish to end their suffering. I looked at that, MAID, and I thought, I think that represents make anyone instantly dead. I think that's what it represents. In other words, they're advertising in waiting rooms now, let us help, we can help kill you. We can help take your life. I mean, that's where the culture's at.
That's where it's at, which is sad to see it, but it is that culture of death, ultimately that spiritual battle that we're talking about. And it won't stop there, and we're seeing these ideas kind of come into our culture as well. We've got to be aware of that. Moving on to the next one.
Somebody said here, coming to New Zealand soon. Are they talking about these issues in New Zealand as well? I'm sure they are. In fact, the whole Western world, they're talking about those issues.
Oh, yeah.
So,
should we talk about Megalodon?
Megalodon, yes. We need to talk about Megalodon.
Well, I'm sure you guys are wondering what happened to Megalodon. According to this article, Megalodon may have been cut off by an exploding star.
It's a giant shark.
Giant shark who went extinct.
That's extinct.
Years ago. Maybe the great white's great-great-great-great-granddaddy got over 60 feet long, weighed over 120,000 pounds. It was a really big critter. Supposedly went extinct around 3 million years ago.
In a fallen world, you wouldn't go swimming with it.
I don't think you'd want to, no.
Be okay before sin, but not after sin. So there's this whole article written about why they think it became extinct, and they think there was an exploding star, and then they use this term that I hadn't used before.
The muons?
Muons, yeah, the radiation dose from muons caused...
Not Mulan, but muons.
And
right, yeah.
the article, when you read it, it says, so the exploding stars, which could have been just 160 light years from Earth, and so it talks about they may have been too much for the Earth's atmosphere and its creatures to handle, and the muon spike could have... You read articles like this, evolutionary articles like this all the time.
Oh, yeah.
We think may have, could have, this could have happened. We think this many million years ago, this.
Yeah.
Did they ever see this happen? No.
Well,
do they know it happened? No. It's a story.
And we always encourage people, especially here in Answers News, when you read these sort of articles, be sure to separate fact from fiction. Separate the headline from the actual facts of what you're reading about. Because quite often you hear all these kind of squishy words. It may have, it might have happened this way, we think. And it's based on literally one assumption on top of another about the unseen past.
It's just a story. And they call this science, and they teach it in the schools. But if you teach that God created, that's religion. You can't have that. But this is science. They say here, there really hasn't been any good explanation for marine megafaunal extinction.
Right.
This could be one. This could be it. And then, read that sentence there.
Well, it says the next sentence, this is a paradigm change. We know something happened. That's true. And when it happened, that's an assumption. And for the first time, we can look at things in a definite way. Now, the next sentence goes on to say this, but earlier this week, another group of researchers theorized Megalodon may have caused itself to go extinct in a totally different way.
So there you are.
Separated by less than an inch.
So there was no point even talking about this paper.
We still have no idea.
Forget about that one. Okay, let's go on to something else.
I think we should make that tradition. There should be a throwing of articles.
Yeah, what's the point? Because the whole story was made up, and then they said at the end it was definitely true, and then they said, then it's not.
It's kind of fun, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
All right, so this will get you riled up most likely. Psych Prof claims God lacked Mary's consent. And if you keep up with this debate at all, you'll recognize that typically once a year during this time, somebody will make the claim that God did something inappropriate with Mary. They might use a stronger word. You're probably thinking that to yourself. But he said on his Twitter, he's a Twitter user who profiles himself as an associate professor of clinical psychology and sexuality
from Minnesota.
In Minnesota. His interests are cats and Poe. And he wanted to apply the contemporary Me Too movement to the New Testament. So he tweeted.
So in other words, he's really already against what the Bible teaches.
Oh, way against. Yeah. In his tweet, he says this: the virgin birth story is about an all-knowing, all-powerful deity impregnating a human teen. And there is no definition of consent that would include that scenario.
Yeah,
Happy holidays.
He's right. There's no definition of consent. Luke 1:38. And Mary said, behold, I am the servant of the Lord. Let it be done to me. Let it be to me according to your word. And the angel departed from her. And you know what it is he goes on to say, well, somebody brought that up and they said, oh, yeah, but God is a vengeful God. And she knew if she didn't do what God wanted to do, that he's a judgmental, vengeful God and so on. What it really is all about is the fact that he doesn't want to acknowledge that God created him, that he's a sinner, that he needs to submit to the God of creation. Mary trusted in the Lord, and she was a godly woman.
She was.
And when the angel Gabriel came to her, she wanted to do whatever God wanted her to do, and was honored that God had actually sent Gabriel to her with this message.
Well, and not only that, but I mean, there's some really good responses to this professor's tweet that are posted on his website, also in this article, that kind of bring out these points as well. One person said, I'm always happy to get a lesson in theology and biblical studies from a secularist. And we do need to keep that in mind. He's not a believer. Why would you get your theology from him? One person commented, you're so courageous. Now do Muhammad.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't want to do that, would they?
Which he won't for a couple of reasons, but it's intriguing because Muhammad, according to Muslim tradition, married a 9 or 10-year-old girl, consummated the marriage at 12 or 13 when he was around 53, but they wouldn't touch him or he wouldn't comment on him, probably for his own safety and most likely also because it's not about attacking all religions. This is about attacking the Christian worldview, attacking truth. Ultimately, as you've said numerous times, this is light fighting darkness. It is that foundational spiritual option, God's word and man's. And I'd also like to point out, dear Christian, when you hear comments like this that may superficially sound like they're making a powerful point, be sure you read the biblical text they're quoting in context. Never read a single verse, read the whole context, and 9 times out of 10, you read the verse in context, and the atheist point is rebutted immediately.
You know, it's interesting. This guy is a psych prof. He's not a theologian, and yet here he is writing on theology as if he's an expert to understand the Bible, which is ridiculous.
Sure.
And, you know, it's interesting. There are atheists that say, Ken Ham's a science teacher. What does he know about the Bible? Then they proceed to tell me why what I say about the Bible is incorrect. They proceed to be theologians.
Richard Dawkins does that all the time. Maybe one last one?
Yeah, one last one here.
The war on Christmas continues. Leftists demand Michigan town remove 3 wise men Christmas display. Basically, there's a school in Newaygo, Michigan, where a civil rights group has demanded that the elementary school remove its traditional 3 wise men display. It's got a star and a 3 wise men coming on top of the school building.
I might just say this, that, you know, this is just one example of many, many, many in this nation. The Freedom from Religion Foundation, they're a small group of atheists from Wisconsin.
Right.
Then you've got the Americans United for Separation of Church and State. You've got other similar sort of groups that the way in which they are imposing the secular religion on this culture is by bullying people and going to any county, state, school,
Not
whatever.
their own state.
If it's usually other states.
Somewhere else, yeah.
And whenever there's anything that has any connection at all to Christianity, they threaten them with lawsuits if you don't take it away. And that's how they've been imposing secularism across the country. The majority of people don't want it. This is just a minority of secularists
who may or may not live in that area.
Right, who are trying to impose their secular religion on the culture. People need to be courageous and stand up to them. That's what needs to happen.
By the way, you know what? And bottom line, we've said this numerous times, we should not be surprised. We should not be surprised that a secular world and non-believers are attacking the biblical worldview and biblical truth. That shouldn't surprise us. And you know what?
Yeah.
It also really, dear Christian, it should excite us. These headlines, these opportunities should be chances we have to talk to people about real biblical truth, to tell them about the real account of the birth of Christ and why that was necessary, their sin, our need for a Savior. We can use all these conversations to get to the gospel of Jesus Christ, which is awesome.
We might just do one more really quickly, and that is that in Nebraska, there was a principal who banned candy canes because she said the J shape stands for Jesus.
Which, by the way, we did a little research on this, and we found no tradition where the J shape stood for Jesus. They're not even sure about the history of the candy cane, according to the research.
Nobody really understands the history of the candy cane. There's all sorts of different stories out there, and nobody really knows. Right. And it's interesting, this particular school official was put on leave because of this, but the district's policy, they said, states Christmas trees, Santa Claus, and Easter eggs and bunnies are considered to be secular seasonal symbols, and they're okay. Again, what it's really saying is they want secularism imposed on the kids, right? Not anything connected to Christianity. And what we've got to realize is when they don't have Jesus or the Bible or throw the nativity out, that's not neutral now. Secular means it's a religion. The state religion in America is secularism. It's atheism.
What's the basic idea? You can explain all of reality, all of existence without God by definition. That is a religion of secular humanism, naturalism, also called atheism.
So just real quickly before we finish, Christmas Eve, all our staff are on vacation. The Ark is closed. The museum is closed 3 days a year. Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and Thanksgiving Day. Those attractions are closed. So there's no Answers News on Christmas Eve. And then on the 27th, There'll be an Answers News where I'm interviewing, actually we'll be interviewing directors of our various international ministries
Which
down
in
at
a
the
lot of
Ark.
places, that's
Down
right.
at the Ark. And then on the 31st, a special treat for everyone. Bodie, who's normally here with us, Bodie and I are
Bodie
going
is the pun
on
master,
Christmas
correct?
Eve.
Yeah.
Bodie and I, because the others of you will be away having a holiday, not Christmas Eve, I should say, New Year's Eve, the 31st, New Year's Eve. Bodie and I will be making fudge and being
here?
taught how to make fudge. Secret location down at the Ark. But we're being taught how to make fudge. That's going to be fun. We're going to put it on YouTube so people can watch it on New Year's Eve night while they're waiting for the ball to drop or whatever it is
That's
over
really
there
cool. Yeah, it'd be good.
in New York and so on. So
Now, will
with
you
that,
eat your own fudge? Do you trust it that much?
you'll have to wait and see.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
We'll wait and see. Should be
So we've
good.
had a great audience today.
It's been good, guys. Glad you're here. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's, and
Happy Christmas to
That's right.
everyone. We
Glad
don't
to
say
hear
Happy
soon.
Holiday around here.
No,
We say Merry Christmas, Happy Christmas, have a blessed Christmas.
And we pray that God will use this Christmas to His glory and spread the gospel as you're out there with your family and friends. Amen? You guys have a wonderful day.